Hey guys, Sonic Smash Bro here, and if you can't tell, I've been doing a lot of Duel Links recordings as of recently. Don't worry, I am still doing dive stuff of my own, and do have more dive recordings planned for the future. It's just a matter of getting there, so for right now, Duel Links is my main focus. Speaking of which, you may have noticed I've uploaded a lot of Synchron games, a few Rose Dragon games for fun, and then there was that one Red Dragon game where I just said, screw it, let's see what happens if I take this into ranked. So yeah, if you can't tell by that, 5Ds into that end synchro summoning, they've just been huge passions of mine ever since I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, and in Duel Links, that's no exception. Especially with Yusei and good old Synchrons here. And yes, I am using Synchrons with Yusei, none of the generic decks with Tie That Binds. You have other characters for that, people. Just saying. Anyway, yeah, let's just get straight into the deck profile with the main skill for Yusei and his signature, the Shooting Star Road. So, at the beginning of a duel, place one Junk Converter in your graveyard. In addition, if you control Stardust Dragon, play Formula Synchron to the field from outside of your deck. Then you can place 3 tuners, specifically Turbo Synchron, Nitro Synchron, and Hyper Synchron. It will always give you those 3 on the top of your deck from outside of your deck. Speaking of which, for those not to know, that is a direct reference to Yusei's final attack against Antinomy in 5Ds, where he drew those exact 3 tuners, in that order. You can only special summon Wind Dragon type Synchro monsters or Warrior Synchro monsters until the end of your opponent's next turn. This skill can only be used once per duel if you begin the duel with a deck that follows the conditions below. Your deck must contain at least 8 in combination of Junk or Synchron monsters, and your extra deck must contain at least Shooting Star Dragon and 4 in combination of Junk, Synchron, or Stardust monsters. Yeah, they really want you using Shooting Star Dragon with this. Can't you tell? Anyway, to facilitate those requirements, 3 of our main core, our main boy, our basically starter for all situations, Junk Synchron. Anyone who knows 5Ds by now already knows what Junk Synchron does. It is a classic. But for those who don't know, all 2 of you, normal summon, target a level 2 or lower monster in graveyard, and special summon it in defense with effects negated. That basically never matters, because the only level 2 or lower we can summon that does not have a graveyard effect is Formula Synchron, but we're never bringing him back with Junk Synchron 99% of the time anyway. So yeah, you definitely need 3 of these. This is our core. This is our main boy himself. If you do not have 3, you might want to go looking for those. We also do have 1 Jet Synchron because this little guy comes up quite a lot. If this card is sent to the graveyard as a Synchro material, you can add 1 Junk monster from your deck to your hand. Or alternatively, if this card is in your graveyard, you can send 1 card from hand to graveyard, special summon it, but banish it when it leaves the field. This is a hard once per turn, as in 1 effect per turn and only once that turn. But he's just so useful. He comes up in so many situations. It's wrong to not have him, at least as one of in here. Of course, we do have 1 Junk Converter, because one of the biggest issues with Shooting Star Road is that Junk Converter is placed in the graveyard at the start of the duel, not at the start of your turn. So if you're going second, yeah, it can get removed from your graveyard before you ever have a chance to play. So we do have 1 in here as a backup. You can discard this card and 1 tuner, add 1 Synchron monster from your deck to your hand. So if you really, really wanted to, you could go Synchron Carrier. If this card is sent to the graveyard as Synchro material, you can target 1 tuner in your graveyard, special summon it in defense position, but it cannot activate its effects this turn. Now, keep in mind, this does not matter whatsoever. Even if you bring back Formula Synchron with this, which is how you're going to be bringing him back if you are in the first place, it does not negate the effects. And Formula Synchron's main use is Synchro summoning during the opponent's turn. So, let's say you go climb the Junk Warrior, bring back Formula Synchron, special summon Junk Servant. You can make Trishula Zero Dragon of the Ice Barrier during your opponent's turn anyway. So yeah, not to mention, most of our tuners do have graveyard effects, so yeah, the not activating effects that turn does not matter. We also have one Young Servant, one Young Forward. These are basically just extenders. Forward if you control no monsters, special summon from hand, and Servant if you control a junk monster, special summon from hand. So, one of my personal favorite combos, when it comes up, is special summon Young Forward, special summon Young Servant, normal summon a level 1 tuner, whether it be Jet Synchron or the other level 1 tuner we play in here, which I'll talk about in a little bit. We also do have a single junk anchor in here. Now, we can't use the main purpose we use this for with this build because we do not have the room to run Junk Archer right now. So, as is now, it serves 3 other purposes. Junk Converter target, Shooting Star Dragon target, and normal summon, special summon Servant go into Brionac. But the other purpose, and the main purpose that I was talking about a second ago, for a Synchro Summon, you can substitute this card for any one Synchron tuner monster. Once returned, you can discard one card, then target one non-tuner junk monster in your graveyard, special summon that target, and if you do, immediately after this effect resolves, Synchro Summon one Synchro monster that lists a Synchron monster as a tuner, using that monster and this card only, and the materials are banished. So generally, on a following turn, you'll go normal summon Junk Anchor, pitch a card, target Junk Warrior, bring it back, and banish the 2 to make Junk Archer. Again, we currently do not have the room for Junk Archer, which is unfortunate, but what can you do? And last but not least, the other level 1 tuner for the Forward Servant level 1 tuner combo. 2 tuning gums. The on-field effect of treating a monster as a tuner does not matter. A, because the drawback of only being able to attack with synchros is pretty bad. And B, it basically never comes up. What we use this for is the graveyard effect. During either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated that targets exactly one Synchro monster you control and no other cards, you can banish this card from your graveyard and negate the activation. Book of Moon is popular, Compulsory Evacuation Device is popular, Crackdown is popular, Phantom Knights are somewhat common, not entirely common, but they can come up, and they get Fog Blade out turn 1 pretty much all the time. We need ways to stop targeting effects, just saying. So, if you're not fond of Tuning Gum because of it requiring you to only have a Synchro monster be targeted, you can run Forbidden Lance instead. That works just about as well, and I'll show that in a little bit. That's it for monsters. On to spells and traps. We do have the one monster Reborn. This is a classic. Now, you could play Reinforced from the army. The reason I prefer Monster Reborn is special summoning from the opponent's graveyard can come up, whether it be to stop a graveyard play, turn their boss monster against them, or in general just put pressure on the opponent with some of their own monsters. Plus, it's just a free extender. You really can't go wrong with that. And the last ones are all 3 ofs: Cosmic Cyclone, pay 1000, target a spell or trap, and banish it. Most prefer Mystical Space Typhoon. The reason I prefer Cosmic Cyclone personally is the banish can come up a good number of times. Mostly to deal with Pendulum Scales. Some back row that can actually be banished from graveyard, such as Phantom Knight's Fog Blade. Still one of the most toxic spells and traps. In general, just back row in general. Screw Fog Blade. Anyway, there's a good number of back row that does have graveyard effects, but they cannot afford to be banished. Another example being Magician's Navigation. So yeah, this can come up in ways that people won't expect, and the paying 1000 life points barely ever matters. Sometimes it does, but most of the time it doesn't. Triple tuning, add one Synchron tuner from deck to hand, mill top card of the deck to the grave. If you're lucky, you mill Jet Synchron or Tuning Gum off of this. However, if you have Junk Converter in hand, instead of going for Junk Synchron, you go Jet Synchron, just so you can use Converter to search anyway, and get Jet Synchron into the grave for free. And lastly, Compulsory Evacuation Device, target a monster on the field, return it to hand. We need this to out Galaxy Eyes and Goki. Without these, it becomes brutal to deal with them. So that's it for the main deck. Real quick, let's take a look at a couple of alternative cards you can use. As I mentioned earlier, if you're not fond of Tuning Gum, there is a good alternative. Where is Forbidden Lance? I know I have a couple. Wow, it's a bit further down than I thought. There we are, Forbidden Lance. Target one face-up monster on the field. Until the end of this turn, that target loses 800 attack, but it is unaffected by the effects of other spell and trap cards. So, if you're not fond of tuning them and you feel like you're getting targeted before you ever get a chance to make a move, this is a good alternative. And lastly, for those who do not have compulsory evacuation device, because that is selection box exclusive unfortunately, another potential alternative it should be around here somewhere. I'm getting close, I know it. There we are, Scrap Iron Signal. When your opponent activates a monster effect while you control a Synchro monster, if it mentions a Synchro monster as material, so generally Shooting Star Dragon or Stardust Warrior have to be on the field, negate the activation, and after that, set this card face down instead of sending it to the graveyard. It is one per turn, but it is very useful for the long game in a lot of situations. Plus, it's a counter trap, so it's already good there too. So, if you only have 2 compulsories, you can also do like 2 compulsory, 1 Scrap Iron Signal, just so you at least have some options. So that's pretty much most of the alternatives for the main deck. You could also potentially play Book of Moon, but I don't think it's really worth it personally. Anyway, on to the extra deck. Of course, our main hitter, Shooting Star Dragon. Yes, I do have a regular one because Selection Pack 5 from the KC Cup EX rules can give you Shooting Star Dragon. Once per turn, you can excavate the top 5 cards of your deck, shuffle them back in. Also, this card's maximum number of attacks per battle phase this turn equals the number of tuner monsters excavated this way. Once per turn, during either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated that would destroy a card on the field, you can negate the effect, and if you do, destroy it. I don't know how people keep forgetting that Shooting Star Dragon has destruction prevention, because it happens all the time, and yet here we are. Once per turn, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can target the attacking monster, banish this card, and if you do, negate that attack. During the next end phase, special summon this card banished by this effect. So, this possesses a multitude of both offensive and defensive effects, but it is mainly our heaviest hitter here, especially if you can get multiple attacks off. And if you place Turbo Synchron, Nitro Synchron, and Hyper Synchron on top of your deck the same turn, you're guaranteed at least 3 attacks. Seriously though, how do people keep forgetting that Shooting Star Dragon, the natural evolution of Stardust Dragon, has destruction prevention? It's so funny to see that happen. A more defensive level 10 is Stardust Warrior. During either player's turn, if your opponent would special summon a monster, it must not be through an effect, by the way. I've learned that the hard way. You can tribute this card and negate the summon, and if you do, destroy those monsters. So this shuts off Pendulum Summoning entirely. This can shut off some Xyz plays, Link plays, Synchro plays, you name it. During the end phase, if this effect was activated this turn and was not negated, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. Or, if this card is destroyed by battle, or if the face-up card you control leaves the field because of an opponent's card effect, you can special summon one level 8 or lower Warrior Synchro monster from your extra deck, and this is treated as a Synchro summon. That last part basically never matters, but the float is so good. It can actually be pretty useful in a pinch sometimes. Our alternative level 8, and an absolute must-have, is Junk Destroyer. When this card is Synchro summoned, you can target cards on the field up to the number of non-tuner monsters used for the Synchro summon of this card and destroy those targets. This is back row removal, this is monster removal, you name it, it can just blow it up. So if you go special summon Junk forward, normal summon Junk Synchron, go Converter, and then go Junk Destroyer, you just get a mini Twin Twisters basically for free. Or, if you want to take the classic Quick Draw Synchron Mecha Phantom Beast online combo, you can blow something up without ever contributing to your normal summon. Like, you still have your normal summon after that. It's insane. Also put Twin Twisters in the game already. Of course, our core Stardust Dragon. If you're running into Rocket Dragon Link a lot after Nightmare Corruptor Ibly gets banned, you definitely want to play 2 of these. During either player's turn, when a card or effect is activated that would destroy a card on the field, you can tribute this card, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. During the end phase, if this was activated this turn and not negated, you can special summon this card from your graveyard. A classic card that has withstood the test of time for a very good reason. Stardust Dragon will forever be one of the best cards ever made. It's just so versatile. Of course, we have Brionac Dragon of the Ice Barrier, generic level 6. Discard any number of cards to the graveyard, target the same number of cards your opponent controls, and return them to the hand. This is just a good bounce. It can come up on occasion, but it's just a really good bounce. It can also bounce problematic extra deck monsters back to the extra deck. Unless they just wasted their resources. So, it's not often this comes up, but when it does, it's pretty nice. Of course, Junk Warrior to fulfill the Shooting Star Road requirement, on top of having a great summon animation, by the way. And, if this card is Synchro Summoned, it gains attack equal to the total attack of all level 2 or lower monsters you currently control. That basically never matters. What the other purpose is for this is a float from Stardust Warrior. So yeah, this little guy has way more versatility than you might think at first. Pretty good. And our alternative level 5, Crystron Amatrix. If this card is Synchro Summoned, you can change all face-up special summon monsters your opponent controls to defense position. This is the effect that matters. Now, if this Synchro Summon card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can target one Crystron monster in your graveyard, except the Synchro monster and special summon it. That never matters in this build. We only use it for the defense position change. Because without this, you lose to Luna Lights immediately because you can't run over Saber Dancer. Without this, you lose to Red Eyes because you can't run over Meteor Black Comet Dragon. And there's stuff like that. So yeah, sometimes you just need that defense position switch. And we do have our generic Cyber Slink 1. Settlement Right Phalanx is probably the easier one of the two to get, because it's just a Soul Burner drop. But without this, you hard lose to Nightmare Corruptor Ibly. This is why we don't have the room for Junk Archer right now. Once Ibly gets banned, this comes out and we put Junk Archer back in. So that is it for the extra deck. Let's look at a few alternative Synchro monsters we can use. The first of which, Ally of Justice Catastor. At the start of the damage step, if this card battles an Undark monster, destroy that monster. This can come up on a few rare occasions, so it is nice to keep in mind. Another one being Armada's Keeper of Boundaries. If this card attacks or is attacked, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects until the end of the damage step. So this is just useful for running over Gokis without triggering their graveyard effects. This is useful for just getting around Necros with their Necros of Valkyris, which is really freaking annoying. It is definitely something to consider. Of course, as mentioned earlier, and by earlier I mean a few times actually, there is Junk Archer. Once per turn, you can target one monster your opponent controls and banish it. During the end phase of this turn, return it to your opponent's side of the field in the same battle position. So, this is pretty much what we're going to be using as our level 7 most of the time. Junk Anger fodder to just facilitate more plays, a good special summon off of Junk Servant extension. It's just nice to have, and you can never go wrong with it. Jet Warrior, another potential float from Stardust Warrior, since we're never actually summoning this thing the normal way anyway. If this card is Synchro Summoned, you can target one card your opponent controls and return it to the hand. If this card is in your graveyard, you contribute one level 2 or lower monster, special summon this card in defense, but banish it when it leaves the field. So yeah, float into a mini Brionac, essentially. Let's see, what else is there that's actually pretty useful? I guess you could play Cyberbeam Lord Zeta, but the problem with that is, unless you're doing with Links, most people know how to play around Zeta by this point, because they can only banish special summoned monsters that are in attack position. And return them to the field during your next standby phase. So, it's okay, but it's really not all that good. Unless it's in Rose Dragons, where it's actually pretty decent. Ravenous Carca Dragon Archithis is another potential possibility, but I don't like it personally here, because you need as many cards in hand as you can for resources at all times. because it is reliant on you discarding cards from your hand for the quick effect destruction, and it's just not worth it most of the time. Instead, usually, I prefer these two. Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. When this card is Synchro summoned, you can banish up to one card each from your opponent's hand, field, and graveyard. The card in hand is chosen at random. And Trishula, Zero, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. When this card is Synchro summoned, you can banish up to 3 cards your opponent controls. If this Synchro summoned card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can special summon 1 Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier from your extra deck or graveyard. Its attack becomes 3,300. Then, have the attack of any face-up monsters your opponent currently controls also negate their effects. You can only use this effect of Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier once per turn, but this is such a great float. It is so good. The triple banish from both Trishula Zero and normal Trishula is just too good to pass up. It's such a game changer, especially since it doesn't target either. You might know Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier is a very obnoxious card in Infinity, by the way. Anyway, that's just about it, really. That's all I can really say in terms of the alternatives for the extra deck. So, let's take a look at some replays from some of my KC Cup games. To give you an idea of what Synchrons can do. Okay, so there's a couple I do want to show here. The first of which is Goki. Now, I don't exactly get the greatest end board here, but this gives me the chance to talk about a major mistake that Goki players will make in this matchup. And this is not the first time I've seen this. This is actually at least the second time. To anyone who plays Goki, don't make the mistake that is made here. Because this guy actually threw. Let's rev it up. Keep on your toes, playmaker. This is gonna... So I'm just gonna mash through this turn, basically. So the tuning out the gate is to give me a better chance of milling Tuning Gum. Unfortunately, not the case here.
The tuner monster junk Synchron's effect. I know what to do. I'm counting them. I synchro summon him. I activate my monster's effect. The tuner monster.
And so we just climb the normal way into Stardust Dragon.
Take flight.
And at least once for the purpose of this deck profile, let's show the animations. Shooting Star Road, this is a case where we want to put the tuners on top, because we're just going to go back into the deck anyway. That just gets us our Junk Synchron and shuffles things back up.
I end my turn.
My turn. I draw.
Okay, so, out the gate, this is correct. As soon as I saw Book of Moon, though, my guess was Goki, and it was the correct guess. So, this is where Stardust Warrior comes into play. So, given that this was the second time I've been in this exact position, the thought running through my head was, is this guy gonna make the same mistake as the last one did? He does indeed do the exact same thing at first, minus it being Rise Scorpio instead of Headbat, but same basic deal. Search the Headbat, and search a Suprex because I'm pretty sure he already had Goki rematch in hand, which he did.
I know what to do. All right.
Now with this Headbat special summon, this is where he throws the game.
I special summon a monster.
Now here, he has game because this is Cosmic. I get that he might have been afraid of Compulsory, but realistically, he can just force the negate with Headbat and Jet Ogre to make Great Ogre. If I don't negate, he starts his finishing move, or already has it in hand, and that's game. If I negate, he searches finishing move, or already has it in hand, makes another Jet Ogre, and has game. This is the second time I have seen this.
I Link summon a monster.
Do not make Master Ogre in this situation.
Check out Stardust
It's not treated as being on the field yet, so Stardust Warrior gets to negate for free.
I activate my monster.
Check out Stardust appear.
And yeah, he didn't even use Headbat there, so he couldn't have even searched, which is really funny.
End my turn.
It's go time. I draw.
And so comes my turn.
Junk Synchron's effect.
Drawing the Turbo Synchron at that point literally did not matter.
I special
So,
summon a monster.
there were a couple of things I was considering here.
Tiniest scrap
I
is found.
ultimately decided against the Brionac play to go for the safer route.
Appear.
Because if he had Octo Stretch in hand already, he'd have stopped my OTK at that point, and that likely would have been game.
Junk Warrior gains
Don't worry,
the
Junk
attack
Warrior,
of
you'll
my
get your
level
summon
2
animation
Aurora
eventually,
monster.
but I have to point this
I
out.
activate my
So instead of going for the Brionac play, I decide to guarantee that he has the Octo Stretch, but also guarantee that I have enough power to run him over anyway.
Sharp steel and ironclad alloy for Junk
So we go around
Destroyer
things
to
Junk
annihilate.
Destroyer style.
Junk Destroyer's effect activates.
Give him the search,
I activate my monster.
and yeah, it turned out he didn't have Octo Stretch. But this just guaranteed that I have enough power to run him over. Because worst case scenario, if he had two, which most don't, like, I don't think any Gokis will run 2 Octo Stretch.
This is the strength of our bond. Stardust.
Then he'd be down to 1 card in hand with really nothing he could do.
You good, playmaker?
Growing.
So yeah, he basically just accepted his fate when he realized, yeah, I had enough power to run through him anyway. One of the only Gokis that didn't scoop, even though he threw. Anyway. Next one I want to talk about is Salamangreat. Don't be fooled by the Yusei. Most of the time, it's not going to be the Synchron mirror match.
Witness the bond with my cards.
As we see here.
Let's rev it up. Sure. I duel.
So this hand is a bit
It's
weird,
my turn.
but it pretty much covers all of my bases.
Card. Tuning. I set a card. I'll set a card. I set a card. The tuner monster Junk Synchron's effect. I'm counting on you. I'm counting on you.
And I believe here I go Amatrix again, because I don't see
I
the
activate my monster's effect.
Shooting Star Road, otherwise I would have gone Junk Warrior.
Synchron. The hopes of the world coalesce into a single star. Let's take flight. Witness the. I end my turn. It's
And
my
here's a
turn.
case where I actually don't want the tuners on top of the deck.
From my hand, I activate a quick
So yeah,
play spell.
Salamangreat Circle, that's fine. Search Gazelle.
Okay. I summon a monster. I activate my
Falco,
monsters. I know what to
Foul. And here's where the generic rank 4 engine can come into play, because they do play some really stupid XCs such as Steel Storm Roach, Malevolent Sin, and Abyss Dweller if you want to go that route.
How's this for an answer?
So I just end up doing double compulsory here.
I activate my trap from my hand.
Dark Hole comes out,
I activate Stardust Dragon.
and this is where Stardust Dragon gets to prove his worth.
I set a card. How's this for an
Knowing what the 3 cards were in his hand already, I had no qualms about flipping the Cosmic Cyclone at that point.
activate a quick play spell.
And it turned out to be, I want to say it's Needle Stealing. Yes, it is. Stardust Dragon comes back. And this is why Stardust Dragon was always so good for so long.
I end my turn. It's my turn. I draw. Let's rev it up.
The top deck tuning,
Spread your wings and
that was beautiful. Because that meant I was guaranteed game no matter what.
Winds of Destiny. Excel Synchro. Dragon.
And so, one of the best summon animations we've ever gotten.
I activate my spell card.
And here, I just see no reason to Synchro climb completely. The Jet Synchron mill was great though. But yeah, knowing what his last 3 cards are, you already know by now that these are Falco, Fowl, and Gazelle. So literally nothing to worry about. I have game here.
Scrap has value. And this monster will prove it. Synchro Summon.
And so now's the perfect time for Junk Warrior to flex.
Junk Warrior.
This is what happens when you don't do the Synchron mirror match if you're playing Yusei.
Junk Warrior gains the attack of my level 2 battle.
I end up not activating the converter effect because I want to just do it the classic way.
Scrap this. This one, you're the toughest. My monster attacks you directly.
Yeah, get out of here.
I never knew you were this. This is the.
So up next, we have what may be considered to be the best deck in the format right now, and arguably even Tier 0, Mech Knight Ibli. Although, I never did get to see if he had Ibli in this build, because he ended up never drawing it. Doesn't change the fact that Mech Knights are a real pain in the neck, though.
Each card has power waiting to be unleashed.
So, unfortunately, I don't draw a Cosmic Cyclone here, which I would have really liked to have.
So I may be a tiny bit stronger than you think. Duel! No holding back. It's my turn. Here I
So
go.
out the gate,
Here I go.
he just summons Mech Knight Avram and goes into Induct the World Chalice Dragon.
Scorches the path to the
This way he can set something in the back,
Come on
2
out.
cards in 1 column,
I
special summon the Mech Knight. Now because he's going first and didn't get Purple Nightfall,
That scorches the
he just
path
has to
the
go straight Mech
future.
Knight and Morningstar here.
I Link Summon. I activate my monster's effect.
Thankfully he did not have Indigo Eclipse either, or he would have just won for free here. Anyway,
Let's see
there's
what
the
you can
card
do.
that everybody wants
I end
banned.
my turn.
One of the two, the other being Nightmare Crusher Ibli. World Legacy Secret. While this face-up continuous trap is on the field, negate all monster effects that activate in the same column as a Mech Knight you control. Oh, and did I forget to mention, it can revive Mech Knights.
This is the card I set. I activate my
So normally you want a Cosmic right
Come
here so
on
it stops the revive.
out. I special summon my monster.
I set a card. I set a card.
Set the 2 compulsories.
I don't think so.
MST, that's completely okay actually, because no matter what, I still have a compulsory on board.
I activate my
And as long as he doesn't get another monster, I can still play without any issues.
Here I go. I draw. From my
World
hand,
Legacy Key, negate the effects of any traps that activate in a Mech Knight column you control. But if you chain a response, that's no issue. So I bounced the Morningstar here specifically so I can get off the multiple attacks with Shooting Star later, because I have the perfect setup to end him right here.
attacks. I end
I
my
can't let
turn.
you push me. It's go time. I draw. I activate my monster's effect.
And so we get to show off a little bit of an extension here.
I'm counting on you. The tuner monster Junk Synchron's effect. I need your help. I expect the hopes of the world coalesce into a single star. Let's rev it up.
Alright, so at this point, I pretty much have game for free.
Take flight.
But I end up taking an extra precaution here and putting Junk Synchron as in the same column as that blue sky. Reason being, I don't want to put Shooting Star there by accident. This is one of those times where you definitely need to put the tuners on top,
Spread your wings and soar to new heights. Be transformed.
because we're just going to be swinging for game right here.
Shooting Star Dragon's effect activates.
Turbo Synchron, Nitro Synchron, Hyper Synchron, just as I said earlier. And, for good measure, Jet Synchron decides to show up.
I'm not scared to it. Shooting Star Dragon attacks.
Yeah, you're not surviving, dude. Get out of here.
Falling Stars.
Yeah, Mech Knights are a pain if you can't play around that World Legacy secret or just get rid of it entirely. It is limit 1, so if you just banish it, they've got no way to bring it back.
This is the strength of our friendship.
So, that went shockingly well by Mech Knight standards. And the final one I'm going to show was, in fact, my level 20 rank up game against one of the other decks that everyone's requesting to be hit quite hard. That being Galaxy Eyes. Now, to those of you who have compulsories, do what I end up doing here. There is a very specific choke point in a Galaxy Eyes combo.
Each card has power. I'll prove that nothing and no one is useless.
And the classic whistle.
Duel.
Yeah, I had to let that play out at least
It's
once.
go time.
That is so sick.
My turn. The tuner monster jumps.
Anyway, we're just gonna do the
I know
usual
what to do.
synchro climbing.
I synchro summon.
I end up starting out with Amatrix,
My monster
just in case I decide to go Stardust Warrior, but I end up having a better idea.
The hopes of the world coalesce into a single stop. Take flight.
It was in this exact game where I realized, wait a minute, there's a choke point.
Each card has. I'll set a card. I set a card.
Why would I bother when there's an obvious choke point?
Time to hunt. I draw. From my hand.
So, here comes the typical Galaxy Eyes revive spam, shuffle reborn first,
Say hello to.
and this is the choke point right here. If you can compulsory their Galaxy Eyes back to hand, they can't get out their Xyz. Now, if they have Photon Stream of Destruction, it's going to be a real pain in the neck.
Here's my face down card. I activate my
But this
trap.
one didn't, thankfully.
Activate my spell card. Monster Reborn. Say hello to Galaxy.
Imagine burning 2 revives for the same result.
This for an answer. I flip over my face.
So this actually forces him to set a face down,
Activate my
I
trap
end
card.
my turn.
and then the top deck happens.
I draw.
Cosmic Cyclone off the top. I know for a fact that's Book of Moon, even though we don't get to see it here, because every kite plays Book of Moon. So this basically put me in a position where Shooting Star only needed 2 turners to take game, and he just
As a
scooped.
duelist, I believe in all my cards.
So yeah, that's the basic idea of Synchrons in action. And even though they're a rogue deck, they are surprisingly very powerful and very versatile. As mentioned earlier, there's a lot of different combos. Especially like, again, Quick Draw, Mecha Phantom Beast line to go Junk Destroy without ever doing your normal summon. And then you can keep playing off of that. There's also, like, as mentioned earlier, the Forward Servant level 1 tutor combo that I didn't get to show. There's Young Servant extensions I didn't get to show here. There's a lot of ways you can go about building this. There's a lot of different cards you can tech in for certain situations, both main deck and extra deck. And realistically, that's the biggest strength of Synchrons. They have so many different ways they can go about their plays, but there are 2 key problems. As mentioned earlier with Shooting Star Road, the biggest issue with it is Junk Converter is put in your graveyard at the start of the duel, not at the start of your turn. So going second, you are vulnerable to getting your converter removed from the graveyard, or God forbid, banished, before you ever get a chance to play, and that absolutely sucks. You really need to keep that converter in the graveyard if you can. And the other big issue is, if you do not open any way to go into Junk Synchron, you are basically screwed. As mentioned earlier, Junk Synchron is basically the must-have. It is basically the core that brings it all together. Without that, you really don't have a play you can make here, unless you were lucky enough to open on forward servant level 1 tuner. Now, I will say one of the biggest issues if you're playing the optimized build, at least in this variant, is it is not free-to-play by any means. There are definitely free-to-play variants out there that make use of the Quick Draw Mecha Phantom Beast Line combo. I've even seen Synchrons with Blue Eyes, which has a lot more synergy than you'd think. It's actually pretty creative. Unfortunately, since it was in the KC Cup, I don't get to see the list. So, oh well. But yeah, that's basically it for this whole deck profile. I know this went on a bit long, but yeah, there was a lot to go over because Synchrons are definitely a lot deeper than you think they are on paper. Because everything just comes together in such a way to where everything fills its own purpose. And it all comes together to create a genuinely amazing work of art. Alright, so that's all I have to say as far as just Synchrons in general right now. So, until the next video, whatever it may be, whether Duel Links stuff, or finally going back to dive recordings, later guys, and see you in the second stage of the KC Cup. Here's hoping it goes well.